Let's try this now. Alright. Aha. I'm getting desktop audio, but not mic. Alright. Let's see. Alright. Let's see. We have that setting. What happens? Wait a second. I'm hearing myself in my headphones. That is a good start. So, let's see. For added good measure, let's find out what happens if we go to my tablet and go to twitch.tv/me. Hey, search for Twitch. Go to Twitch. And search for loading. Might be using up all of my internet capabilities right now just by there we go. SVR _ ELT, because that's me. There I am, just chatting. Okay. It's weird hearing my own voice coming out of something else. There I am, just chatting. Okay. It's weird hearing my own voice coming out of something else. There I am, just chatting. And I've got this cool echo going on now. Huh. How do I handle the echo? Oh, the microphone is currently picking up my tablet, isn't it? Okay. So, we're going to stop the tablet because I think it's picking up the tablet. So that's interesting. Okay. So I thought I had... Oh, knocking over stuff with the arm to the mic. So that's a new process. Okay. Oh, wait. That setting should be up here, right? Yeah, that's... Yep. It's the two concentric rings, right? What did I do with my instruction manual for this thing? Yep, that's the boom mic arm. Well, this is a good start anyway. At least I actually have a functional microphone, and theoretically, if anybody stopped by, they would be able to hear me thinking out loud about how this is going so far. Alright. Well, just for posterity, so I am Saber, and this is my first time streaming anything at all on any format, so I haven't ever actually done anything like this before, but I've been wanting to for a while, and I bought the equipment, and I've set it up today, and this is my first practice stream. My plan going forward is that I'm going to stream Commander deck creation for Magic the Gathering. So I've seen a lot of videos for Magic in general. I mostly like to watch Limited, but I do enjoy playing Commander, so I've tried a couple of different YouTube channels for ideas on Commander. Like, I see an interesting video, I click on it, and all of those videos are either people actively playing Commander or people showing a deck that has already been built. And that's neat and all, but there's a whole lot that goes into actually building the deck the first time. And I do this anyway when I'm building a new deck so that I don't have to go through all of the binders from every set and pull out all of the cards. I use Gatherer because it's there. I haven't bothered to download any of the other searchable Magic programs out there that are probably even easier to search than Gatherer is. But it's very easy to just eliminate the colors that are not in the deck and then search set by set. And then I have a Word document that has all of the current sets listed on it, and I just add the cards that I'm thinking about putting into the deck, and a little bit of their game text, things that I might forget about so I don't have to constantly keep looking up the card again to remember, like, oh, hey, I've got 30 cards all of a sudden that care if I have a pirate in the deck. How many of these guys are actually pirates now that aren't the ones that care about it? Or, I don't want to have to go through all of that again. So, I'll put little notes there: creature type, power, toughness, casting cost, sorcery, instant, artifact, basic card types. I put a little notation in front of each of the lands so that I don't count them when I'm doing my counts to figure out how many cards I've actually selected for the deck so I can start shaving it down. Usually I'll have like 300 cards by the time I'm done, not counting the lands, so that's got to get shaved down to 60 cards. So, a lot, like the first couple hundred cards, like 150 cards, are usually pretty easy. They're things that I saw and I'm like, that's a cool card, I would like to put that in a commander deck, and then it's like, this is not the commander deck for it though. This card does not follow what the commander's about, it doesn't add to the theme. So those cards are usually pretty easy cuts, but they're the kind of cards that I would pull out of the binder when I'm first building the deck, because I'm looking at a Monk Hat now, and I haven't looked at the other 20 sets because I have to get down through the binders, or I have to go down the list on Gatherer in this case now. So I take those cards because at the time I'm thinking of them, I don't have like 500 cards on the list yet, so those are cards that I would like to add to a commander deck at some point in time, and they are in the colors and maybe kind of on theme, or creating a cool sub-theme. Sub-themes usually get nuked by the time I'm done, though. They don't do enough. But if the sub-theme is good enough, there's probably a better commander for that sub-theme that I could have built the commander deck around for that one, and I just wind up cutting all of the cards. I've been working on a Greasefangs deck for a while now, and because Greasefangs uses so many vehicles and has so many artifact matters cards, there's a sub-theme that was going through her where I had, Ashnod's Transmogrant, Phyrexian Scriptures, lots of things to turn liquid metal coating, things to turn permanents into artifacts, and things to punish non-artifact permanents. And while that's a cool sub-theme, I only have 60 cards to work with, and her main theme is vehicles, not things being artifacts. So there is a deck somewhere that wants me to turn all of my permanents into artifacts and then tactically nuke all non-artifact permanents from orbit with things like Sunscour, and there's one of the commander sets recently, not like New Capenna, but a little bit before that, has the improvised destroy all non-artifacts, non-land permanents, I think, or destroy all non-artifact creatures. It's like an 8-mana sorcery, but you can tap your untapped artifacts to help pay for it. So, those type of cards, I wanted them in there because she's already got so many artifact creatures and artifact matter synergies going on. But her first and foremost thing is that she brings vehicles back from the dead. She reanimates them, she gives them haste, and as long as they have crew cost less than 5, she naturally just crews them to begin with. So, I don't want to dilute that theme. I have to make room for the good vehicles first, and ways to get them quickly into the graveyard so that way they're there for my 3-drop to reanimate them. Obviously the goal is something like Parhelion Patrol in the first couple turns into the graveyard, play Grease Fangs out of the command zone, reanimate Parhelion, crew it, attack, get the 2 angels, and now I have a massive board state on, like, turn 3. Like, that was the goal when I'm building this deck. And obviously, it's a commander deck. Even if I put, Entomb and whatnot into the deck, I'm not always going to have that on turn 3, but the fact, like, that's the kind of idea that I want the deck to be looking towards, and the artifact matters sub-theme where I'm trying to turn all my guys into artifacts and put, like, Abyss and Magus of the Abyss and Sunscour and all of them into the deck, so that way I can ruin everybody else's good time while I have nothing but artifacts in play. Like, that's an idea for a commander deck, but it's not Greasefang's commander deck. It just happened to have a lot of white and black cards in that sub-theme. But this feels more like I need a different Artifact Matters commander, not the Vehicle Matters commander for that kind of build. So, things like that. So, and just, as you might have noticed if you're watching the VOD for this, since I'm live with nobody knowing who I am and nobody is going to bother watching this live, as you can see, I can ramble about Magic quite a bit. So, if I'm going to try to be a streamer, I need to talk about something that I'm passionate about and do something that I'm passionate about, and there are very few things in this world I am more passionate about than Magic the Gathering. I've been playing since 1994, so I started about a year and a couple months after the game came out. Game came out in like 93, I think August at Gen Con, and I started playing in, I want to say, September or October of 94. So most recent sets when I started playing were Revised and Fallen Empires. 4th edition was coming out soonish. I don't think it had actually dropped yet. I didn't start seeing it until like the beginning of the next year in 95, which makes sense because that's when the copyrights on it are. So it probably came out in like February or March of that year. And a little while after that, I think Ice Age came out in the end of summer, I want to say, or beginning of summer that year. So yeah, those were like the first new sets that came out after I started playing. So I've been playing Magic for quite a long time now, and I genuinely enjoy it. I've never been like a big tournament player. I have tried to be a few times, but not ever seriously enough. Like, I would go to PTQs and whatnot. Best I ever did in that regard, I finished 22nd in the PTQ for Berlin, and that was during Shadowmoor, Lorwyn Shadowmoor block constructed, and that was a fun time. Because that was, first of all, I was like 5-0 going into round 6 when I got my first loss, and then I wound up rattling off a couple more losses to miss the top 8. But up until that point, I was 5-0, and I was very proud of myself because I had homebrewed my deck. One of the things that I was really excited about was the use of the card Dream Fracture, because everybody was running 5-color control at the time, basically, because you had access to things like Cryptic Command, Cloud Thresher, the Fairies. So there was a lot of... the 4-drop slot was where Cryptic Command came in, so a lot of the decks were trying to be able to run that at the time, so putting Dream Fracture allowed me to counterspell before I was supposed to be able to, as far as most people were concerned at that particular event. So it caught a lot of people off guard, and giving your opponent a card doesn't matter if you are stopping one of the best cards in their deck, because then they have to draw one more copy of that card for it to have not worked out, and you have to not draw anything off of your draw, because Dream Fracture is symmetrical that way. Each player draws a card. And there's no cancel in the format, so Dream Fracture was the only... There was Familiar's Ruse, which was 2 blue and you had to be able to bounce a creature, but that one was less exciting because a lot of the creatures in my deck, as well as the other decks, were things like Cloud Thresher and whatnot, where they were like higher CMCs. I think Chameleon Colossus might have been in there. It's been so long. But anyway, I was very proud that I had gotten that far before I started losing. So that was pretty neat. And then I didn't really have any like big tournament success until I think they were still called Grand Prix during the Ixalan block. I went to the Grand Prix up in North Jersey that they called Grand Prix New York because it was so far north. It was, the part of New Jersey that's like up there by New York State. So, and there was a lot of fun to be had amongst the tournament announcers who, it's like, welcome to Grand Prix New York because, state border lines mean nothing to Wizards of the Coast. Those type of announcements from the judging staff, so that was kind of amusing. But it was during Ixalan, so I managed to make day 2 with X and 3 record. I had X and 2 until the last round, but I ran into Huatli Warrior Poet variant, the red-white version. And she didn't show up in Game 1 that I won, or Game 2 that I lost, so I was not prepared for her when she showed up in Game 3, stopped all my creatures from being able to block that turn, and let them Alpha Strike me for lethal. So, but I managed to make day 2, with an X3 record, so I got to draft. This was actually pretty cool. I got to draft with Shahar Shenhar. So he was probably having a pretty bad weekend relative to how he normally does, while I was having a great weekend because I had finally day 2 to format. So that was insane. So I was in his draft pod, and I wound up drafting Merfolk, which at the time was generally considered to be one of the strongest draft archetypes. The biggest problem is that my deck was 99% creatures, and all of my tricks were on board. I think I had a Dive Down and a Spell Pierce were like my only 2 interaction. But I had like 4 copies of the blue, green, and 1 3/3 Merfolk that you can pay for mana to put a counter on one of your creatures. So I had 4 of those, and that was insane. I did lose 2 out of 3 games that round, like for that particular draft, because of the lack of interaction. And the only person I actually managed to beat was this one guy who was super salty because he didn't know what I had in my hand, but he knew what was in his. You ever find yourself in that situation where you know you're dead, but the opponent doesn't, and it feels like the opponent is dragging it out unnecessarily? Well, he was in that position because he was sure he was dead, and he wanted to, like, at the end of it, he was trying to commiserate with me over why I didn't, push my advantage harder, and I didn't have time to explain to him that on board he was killing me and I had no way to protect myself, and the only reason I would have gotten through for damage was his defeatist attitude. So I went 1 and 2 in the first draft, and then I managed to get my 3 wins, I believe, in the second draft. Like, this deck was terrible, but the pod was not great, and so the opponents I were playing, not, similar to me at that point in time, not exactly running at the top of their game, or they wouldn't have been in that position. So, yeah, I got 1 win because my opponent misread their own cards and forgot about a trick they had seen when they duressed me earlier. And, yeah, so I wound up cashing in that event, so that was pretty cool. That was my first time cashing at the Grand Prix level. Up until that point, the only time, like, a Grand Prix I would have considered successful, like, there was one in Atlantic City during the cons block, but it was Fate Reforged had come out. I don't think we had gotten Dragons yet. I think we were still on cons for Grand Prix Atlantic City. And I had an okay main event. That was one of the main events. I built the deck very poorly. I tried to cram the not Dragon Lord Ojutai, but the other Ojutai, like the Fate Reforged Ojutai, into my deck because it was a big stupid dragon, and I was going to play the big stupid dragons because they were really powerful. And so I realized that the deck that I had constructed it badly after the first round. This was one of the first times where I took advantage. So I figured out what my deck probably should have been, and I wrote down in my notes, like, how, like, what cards I was supposed to be running. So because it's a major event, you have to do the deck list ahead of time, and you have to commit to that. So what I committed to was a absolute pile. But games 2 and 3, you can change the entire deck around to fit the sideboard. So that's what I did. So I swapped the entire deck around, and I think I won maybe one round and won, like, a couple of the games, like, post sideboard. So I was very proud of myself for, that basic concept of I was not sideboarding or I had not built the deck properly, but that doesn't mean that I have to just drop out of the tournament. Like, I can reconfigure the deck and give myself a fighting chance to do something with the pile of cards I have in front of me. So I was proud of myself for that much, at least, because one of the things that I am terrible at, that I've always been not great at, is proper sideboarding in Magic. And that's a very important skill to not have. Like, that one really hurts the win percentage. So having a moment where I not only identified the problem, but took corrective action, and had that corrective action get me more wins than I was going to get if I just, like, stuck with the pile that I had miserably put together and didn't, that felt pretty good. So anyway, once I got knocked out of the main tournament, once I picked up, like, my third loss there, and decided I didn't want to keep going with a bad deck when I could be doing side events, the side events were so much fun, but the best one was towards the end of the night. There had been, like, this big thing up on their wall of events coming up, and one of the things that was on there was Original Innistrad Limited Sealed Deck, which is, for what they were doing 2 regular Innistrad packs, 2 Dark Ascension, and 2 Avacyn Restored, and you built a sealed deck out of them. Now, this was when the people that were running the tournaments on the East Coast, like New York, New Jersey area, were doing, I think they still do this, I don't know, pandemic kind of shut everything down. They were doing it before the pandemic, where events gave you points, like these little point cards, and then they had a prize wall, and you could exchange the points for anything on the prize wall, and there was, all kinds of fun stuff. There were, like, I don't think there were secret lairs when I was doing it, but there were the From the Vault series. But there were also, like, just normal full booster boxes of recent Magic sets. And sometimes they would have other cool things, like random packs from older sets that were really expensive, and individual cards, dual lands. I know they put, like, a Lotus in there, and there are people that just went there and tried to grind events and pool their resources and buy the Lotus type of thing. So, but the prize payout for this event was erroneously high. Like, winning the event, like going 7-0, I think it was, or 4, I forget how many rounds they decided to do, but going XO in the event gave you, like, 4 or 4.5 booster boxes of a current Magic set, or point equivalent thereof. And this had been a misnomer. They did not mean to make the point thing that high, so everybody had signed up, and we were waiting to get our packs, and they announced that they were going to cut the prize pool to what they had intended. And there was a huge uproar from most of the players. I wasn't one of them, because I just wanted to open Innistrad packs to try and crack Lilies and Snapcaster Mages because it was, 6 packs, and the entry fee was like $30. So you get 2 packs of Original Innistrad to try and crack Lily and Snapcaster Mage, who were insane at the time. There are a few cards in Dark Ascension, nothing too crazy, and a few cards in Avacyn Restored. So it was, as far as I was concerned, like, the $30 entry fee was worth the cost just to crack the packs. And so a bunch of other people were over arguing with, like, the tournament organizers and whatnot, and they eventually decided to restore the original prize support. They decided that the negative feedback from all of the players who had signed up for it was so much that they didn't want to. It wasn't worth it to them. Like, they could afford to take the loss on the prizes that they were giving away in order to, and they'd just be more careful in the future. So they wind up going for this. So I did open a Black Mythic. It was the other mono Black Mythic in the set, which is the Make 13 Zombies for like 9 mana flashback for 13. So I see them about to open a Black Mythic, and I'm getting all excited, and then it's that one. What I did open, though, in the Dark Ascension pack was I opened Falkenrath Aristocrat, the black-red 4-mana 4/1 haste flyer that can sack a creature, gain indestructible, and when it eats a human that way, it gets a counter. And for my flip card in that same pack, I had Huntmaster of the Fells. You know, the thing that was like one of the tournament-defining cards from that format. But I have them both in limited. So I built Jund, and I proceeded to destroy everyone that I played against. I had like a Rolling Tembler, and I had the Power of Fire, like the enchantment, the Hermetic Study enchantment, the tap, deal a point of damage, button red. And I had one of the Death Touch ghosts. Like, it's like black and 3 for like a 2/1 flyer, and you can spend 4 mana to give it Death Touch. It might have been black and 2, and you can spend 4 mana. Anyway, you put those two together, and I can spend 4 mana and tap this creature to destroy target creature. And I had a couple other things going on for me, and then I have those top-end bombs, like the Huntmaster and the Falkenrath Aristocrat. So I have these 2 Doomsday creatures that will absolutely wreck you after all this other stuff is done mopping up your board. And so I just ran the tables for that side event. And it was getting towards the end of the night, and I had gone down with my brother. He was starting to get like con crud at that point, so he was feeling a little under the weather. So he told me that he didn't mind staying for the full event if I won the stupid thing. So I get to the last round, and the other guy asked me if I want to split. Now, splitting was like if you got like 4 boxes, 3.5 boxes, something like that. What did I say before? I think I had it accurate before. It was a lot. It was a lot of product. It was at least 3 boxes, 3.5 boxes, I think. So if you split, you would get like 3 boxes worth, and a loss at that point would knock you down to like about 2 boxes, I think. And I told the guy, I was like, normally I would, because that's usually my mentality. I'd rather secure prizes than, ruin my overall thing. Like, I would much rather have 3 boxes than, go down to 2 boxes as opposed to trying to get, like, the 3.5 boxes. So, but I told him, I was like, I promised my brother that I would win the whole thing. And he played against me for about 10 minutes before he ran into the Power Fire Death Touch thing, and then after that had gotten me about 4 or 5 creatures before he killed it. I slam Huntmaster and make my wolf and gain life, and then he has to pass the turn, and then I kill his thing, and then I cast the Falkenrath and attack him for like 10 damage, and he's just like, oh yeah, no, your deck is insane. No, I don't blame you for not wanting to split now. This thing is absolutely nuts. And so I wound up like rolling him the same way I did the rest of the people I was playing against, and I left the event with a full case between that event and the other events that I played in, with a full case of Khans of Tarkir. So, fetch lands. So, I still have most of that case. I used one of them about a year and a half ago. It was right around the time we had stopped, we had eased up on the pandemic restrictions, and we were doing in-person drafts again at one of the places I used to play at that since stopped hosting events because other reasons. But anyway, so one of the guys that we have been playing with for a long time is actually part of a D&D group that I was running for a while. He was moving away out of state, so this was going to be his last weekend. So I asked him if there's anything he wanted to draft, because I don't have like tons and tons of sealed product, but I do have like a handful of boxes from a lot of different older formats, and I listed off a bunch of them. And out of the ones he thought would be reasonable for like the store, like the people at the store to divide the cost up, Cons of Tarkir. So we did a Cons draft, and Cons is one of my favorite formats. I love drafting 5-color morph. Like, there are very few draft formats that I've had more fun with than 5-color morph in Cons of Tarkir. So that was incredibly fun for me. He opened a fetch land. He had a good time. The rest of our group enjoyed doing it. We kicked the store like I figured out. I forget what Cons of Tarkir was going for. I think it was like 120 a box or something, 140 a box that I needed to get to, be okay with cracking this box as opposed to sitting on it for the rest of my life. So. And then we had to give the store like a few dollars a person to make them feel like they were making money off of having this event there. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And so having a case of cons just lying around, English cons lying around, super helpful. I do collect foreign language foils, especially Planeswalkers. I used to buy foreign boxes back when that was a lot easier to do and about the same price. And for some reason, Wizards hates my money, and they keep making it harder and harder for me to get the products that I want. So first they stopped letting stores buy boxes directly from them in languages outside of the primary language of that region. So like you can't get I used to be able to get like Korean, Japanese, and sometimes Chinese if I couldn't get Korean or Japanese boxes from my local gaming stores. Like, you just used to be able to go in there and buy boxes of the set in that language. They were a bit more limited, but the people that I was buying from didn't charge me more, even though there was a while where having the foreign language cards was a status symbol, especially among the more elitist Magic players, and as somebody who takes a great deal of pride in my Magic the Gathering collection, that meant that I collect things. Some things I collect for me. Some things I just genuinely love and collect for me. Other things I have collected over the years because they matter so much to other people, and I want my collection to be impressive to people who are not easily impressed by Magic collections, but who do care about them, So I would occasionally buy things just because I know other people would ooh and ah at them that I would see on a regular basis. So so I collected foreign language foils especially because those were the things that most appealed to me. And my preference is actually for Japanese language first, Korean second, even though Korean is the rarer of the two languages and is usually more expensive. Because the time period I grew up in and the things that were going on in Magic when I started caring about collecting everything as opposed to just having what I needed. So growing up, I really liked a lot of the stuff that came out of Japan, even when I didn't realize that's where it was coming from. I was a big fan of Transformers, Voltron. I got into DBZ back before the Funimation dubs. So this was when I was watching it like 6 in the morning on a Sunday. So I'm sorry, there's a little bit of background noise. I was just wondering what that was. So I've always liked things from Japan, like pop culture things from Japan, even before that became like the default nerd thing to like anime and whatnot. So I briefly quit Magic back during Mirrodin Block. The tournament scene had dried up at the local level, and I wasn't interested in driving, like an hour to go play in big tournaments to get smashed by the second round of Urza Saga, what I dubbed Mirrodin Affinity decks. This was even before I got to see Darksteel and Fifth Dawn, so Ravager wasn't even printed yet. I was getting smashed by like Broodstar still when this was going on, and since the local scene had kind of dried up, I wasn't really feeling it. I did, air quotes, quit Magic for about a year and a half. I did not sell anything that I had, though, because I had known way too many people who play Magic, quit, sell their stuff. A few years later, they get the itch, they hear about something cool in the game, they come back, and they find out that all of their stuff that they sold had like quadrupled in value, and now they didn't have any of it, and now they couldn't play like the older formats where they could have played the cards that they used to have and used to love, along with the new cards that they were falling in love with that got them back into the game. Yeah, I knew too many people that did stuff like that, so I didn't sell any of my collection. In fact, I still bought like a couple minor things here and there, mostly stuff for vintage. Anything that I thought might see like eternal format play. So I bought like a Death Cloud, and I actually bought Last Word, thinking that counterspell that can't be countered might be a relevant thing, because combo was like a huge deal in vintage around it started being a huge deal around Urza Saga, but you could still kind of control mid-range your way through vintage. Like, oh, that's my phone. Okay. Well, that might be important, and I don't know how to pause the stream, so I've been rambling on for a while, so I think we're going to cut it here. It's a good practice stream, so if you're watching the VOD for this, I hope you found any of my rambling interesting, and I hope that you like the idea of what I'm going to be doing on this channel. I'll do some other stuff too, but that was going to be the focus, is building commander decks on this channel and showing the process of going through them. Alright, I'm going to find the end stream button now, and if you like this and you want to, follow my channel and see my actual deck making, I hope you do. I look forward to having you in the chat, and I will see you later. And